Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. Tonight, our featured subject is a physician. It's Dr. Frank Jobe, who died recently at the age of 88. Dr. Frank Jobe is perhaps the greatest orthopedic surgeon in sports history because he invented the Tommy John surgery. Tommy John was a good pitcher. He'd been with the White Sox for a while. He was with the Dodgers when I was working at Wrigley Field. He was a southpaw, and I remember that his career was just about over because he had a problem with his ulnar collateral ligament. Dr. Frank Jobe did an ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction surgery on him. He based it off of similar surgery that had been done in polio patients, but this was the first time that it had been done in a baseball player, in a pitcher. Tommy John went on to have not a good but a great career, and it's safe to say that Dr. Jobe's surgery revolutionized baseball. It's been done thousands of times since then. ESPN did a 30-30 on Dr. Frank Jobe and Tommy John, and I'm going to include a little bit of it here as it describes the surgery, Tommy John, and Dr. Frank Jobe.
Well, in medical terms, it's a graft reconstruction of the ulnar collateral ligament of the elbow, but nobody calls it that.
More than 500 pitchers have had the same unique operation
of the Tommy John surgery, which should be called the Frank Jobe surgery.
I first hurt my elbow at 13, going from little league distance to major league distance. As I got into minor league ball, I kept having elbow problems right on the tip of that bone, right there. And back then, you never said anybody, oh, my arm's sore. You just kept pitching.
Now, Tommy John of the White Sox is on.
I pitched a shutout, and the next day I got up, I could not move my arm.
I was a medic with the 101st Airborne Division, and I was only 18 years old at the time. And they kept saying to me, what are you going to do when you get out? Well, I hadn't even thought about it then. I just finished high school. And they said, well, you got to have a plan. And I said, okay, I'll be a doctor. I became a physician for the Dodgers. That was really an offer from heaven almost.
July 17th, 1974, I'm pitching against the Montreal Expos. I get right to the point where you're going to throw, and I felt this pain in my elbow like I've never had in my life.
The ball went in the stands, and everybody looked, what in the world happened to him?
And I shake my arm, get the ball back, and I throw again, and the same pain. And the ball goes home plate.
It was not a pitch. It was just a fluky throw.
I go, time. I walk off the mound. Walt Alston's coming this way, and I said, Walter, I've hurt my arm. Get somebody in.
I saw him walk off the pitching mound right there, walk right into the clubhouse. I didn't know what was wrong with him or anything.
You're talking 1974. There's no MRIs, no CT scans. All they have is x-rays. Well, they x-ray my arm, and the bone is fine. There's no chips, anything. They take my forearm, and they go, and they open it up like this. And he goes, whoa, that's a little too much.
And so he had torn the stabilizing forces in the inside of his elbow.
I thought when it was done that I was the most unlucky SOB in the world.
Usually what we did with people like that was to say, try to get a good job when you get back home. In his case, he said, I'm not going to do that. I want you to fix it. Want me to fix it? How am I going to fix it? I don't know how.
He was a friend first and a doctor second.
This was not only a number one player, it was my friend. I thought about taking a tendon transfer from someplace else and doing it because I've done a few of those before when I was at Rancho Los Amigos and operated on some polio patients.
He said, you may throw one pitch and it just goes, like a spring.
When he'd ask me, what are my chances? I told him probably 1 in 100.
He would not BS me.
Really, I just said that because I didn't know any better.
But he said, I can tell you 100%, if you do not have it, you'll never pitch Major League Baseball again.
And then one day in the office, he looked at me and he said, let's do it.
We did a tendon transfer. We took a tendon, the palmaris longus, which runs down the inside of the forearm, transferred that tendon over to the left arm. Using drill holes in the bone, we fashioned another ligament, tied it as tightly as we could, holding the arm together.
It was the most groundbreaking surgery in baseball history. He had no idea how long it was going to take, nor did I. I hedged my bets. I called my buddy Hoyt Wilhelm, master of the knuckleball, and I told him, I said, Sarge, I may be coming down to live with you and Peg for a winter so we can work on a knuckleball. If this surgery doesn't work, most of my teammates Garvey, Say, Russell, all those guys, that they would look at me and just shake their head. They thought it was a waste of time. But I found out the more I threw, the better I felt.
He pitched in a game 1 year after the surgery. 1 year and a day, I think it was.
I didn't know if I could throw the ball over the plate.
But each pitch, I sat on the edge of my seat. Is he going to come apart? Is that going to hold?
I started 7 times in 28 days. Every 4 days, I was on the mound.
And as you recall, he won about 10 games the next year. The next year, he won 20. We've got some here if it doesn't come apart.
I said it was a good thing it wasn't Billy Gabarkowitz who got the operation. We'd hate to call it the Gabarkowitz operation.
He has 2 first names, Tommy and John. It kind of rolls off your tongue.
He just got tired of saying it's the ulnar collateral ligament replacement surgery with the palmaris longus tendon.
You know, I think he's kind of proud of the fact that his name is in the medical literature now as the name of a good procedure that's turned out to be outstanding.
The game that will stand out in my mind forever was 1977 in the playoffs, Dodgers-Phillies. I pitched 9 innings in a pouring down rainstorm. I won the game 4-1. Lasorda kept saying, "How you feeling?" I said, I'm fine. And I struck out Bate McBride to end the game. And that was where I knew.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Frank Jobe.
He came in and relieved me in 74, so I let him come out and do the same thing.
To throw out the first pitch is really exciting. When everybody in the stands is with you. I don't know the words to express it. It's an honor.
If ever 2 men were joined at the elbow, it's Tommy and Frank.
I would not have had the last 13 years of my career and 164 wins if it wasn't for Dr. Jobe.
Did I set out to do a revolutionary procedure? No. I just was trying to fix his elbow so he could pitch.
Well, Dr. Jobe certainly fixed Tommy John's elbow and a lot of others like him. And it certainly was a revolutionary surgery. And for those who don't believe it, timing is everything. About 8 years before Tommy John had his surgery, the Dodgers had another southpaw who had an elbow problem with his left elbow, and it was basically the same problem as Tommy John's. And he was forced to retire prematurely at age 30 because, although he was working for the Dodgers in those days, Dr. Jobe had not yet considered doing the procedure on a pitcher's elbow. Had he done so, it might not have been called the Tommy John surgery. It might have been called the Sandy Koufax surgery. And we can only wonder what would have happened had the greatest pitcher in history had that surgery and been able to prolong his career. No, the lesson there is timing is everything. We're going to move on now to William Clay Ford, who died recently at the age of 88. He was the grandson of Henry Ford, son of Edsel Ford. He was the last surviving grandson, basically the last link to the founder of the company. He would ride on Henry Ford's lap in one of the old Fords when he was a little boy. After all the mishigas at Ford in the 1930s and 40s, we've talked about that before, he was not given the head position. It went to his brother Henry II, but he was made the head of the Continental Division. However, his major role in Detroit was as a philanthropist, businessman, and ultimately in 1961 the owner of the Detroit Lions. He went to Yale. He was a great athlete there, and he married a Firestone heir, Martha Firestone. So there's a lot of money in that merger. When he was on the board of directors, the Lions were actually one of the best teams of the 1950s. But then when he became owner, things changed. He was a great owner in the sense that everybody loved him. He was a terrible owner in the sense that the Lions were basically a really bad team for all the time of his ownership. Here's a report on William Clay Ford.
William Clay Ford was the grandson of Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford Motor Company. He saw his first Lions game in 1934. 20 years later, he was named to the team's board of directors. He was there during the glory years of the 1950s when the Lions, led by Hall of Fame quarterback Bobby Lane, won 3 world championships. One of the stars of that team was linebacker Joe Schmidt. And when he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1973, he asked William Clay Ford to be his presenter.
First off, I'd like to thank the Detroit Lions and Mr. Ford for the opportunity to play football with the Detroit Lions. If it wouldn't be for him, I certainly wouldn't be here today. They made my job in professional football very easy.
William Clay Ford spent years as the chairman of Ford Motors, and he saw firsthand how the workers at the auto factory identified with Ford's other team, the Lions.
When I go to the games and I'm out on the field before the games, there are a lot of guys in the stands that
will yell at me and come over and shake their hand. And, I work in such and such a plant in Rouge or someplace in the Detroit area. Yeah, I think there's a certain kinship there, the tie in between the company and the Lions, that they do feel close to it. I think it's probably a byproduct of the environment in Detroit. It's a blue-collar town. People are busy working in factories all week long, and sports is a great release and a great outlet. People like to go and vent their emotions on a sporting event, and it's just part of the atmosphere of the whole Detroit area and really the whole Midwest and Michigan area.
Standing proudly in downtown Detroit is Ford Field. Opened in 2002, the stadium serves as a home to the Lions and a tribute to their owner, William Clay Ford. Ford convinced the NFL to bring the Super Bowl back to frigid Detroit in February 2006. The championship game pumped $260 million into the local economy, and it put Ford Field on the national stage.
The reception to Ford Field has been phenomenal. I think everybody in Detroit is just thrilled that we're back home where we belong, and so am I. So I think between that and Detroit Lions charities, I think we've added a lot to the community.
Going to move on now to Wendy Hughes, a great Australian actress who died recently at the age of 61. She's from Melbourne. Most Americans are unfamiliar with her because she did most of her best work in Australia, although she did do a TV miniseries as Jackie Kennedy and a couple of episodes of Homicide: Life on the Streets. Her best work that Americans may be familiar with was as Aunt Helen in the wonderful 1979 movie My Brilliant Career, and here she is with Judy Davis.
My husband isn't dead. He left me for someone else. Left me to live the rest of my life with the shame of being neither wife, nor widow, nor maid. But why should you be ashamed? Marriage gives us respectability, dear. As you learn.
No, that is just what men want us to believe. Stupid idiots like Frank Horden. Well, I won't be caught up in it, not by him or anyone.
Aunt Helen, please stop trying to marry me off. Well, I suppose I should tear up this invitation then from Miss Augusta. For you to stay a few days at Five Bob. Shall I?
No.
My Brilliant Career is a great movie. You should check it out and check out Wendy Hughes in it. We're going to close tonight with Hal Douglas, who died at the age of 90, and he was the great movie trailer voiceover artist. You may not know what he looks like, but you'll know his voice, and here he is doing a little send-up for a Jerry Seinfeld promo. They're calling him Jack, but trust me, it's Hal Douglas.
Whoa, feedback. All right, let's try this.
This is the voiceover for a comedian movie trailer. Take one.
In a world where laughter was king.
No in a world, Jack.
What do you mean, no in a world?
It's not that kind of movie.
Okay. In a land that...
No in a land either.
In a time...
I don't think so.
In a land before time.
It's about a comedian, Jack.
One man.
No.
When your life is no longer your own.
What does that mean?
When everything you know is wrong.
That's wrong.
In an outpost.
No.
On the edge of space.
There's no space.
A girl.
No.
Two girls.
No.
Now.
No.
More than ever.
Stop it.
A renegade cop.
I hate you.
A robot renegade cop.
You're fired.
You're fired.
No, you're actually fired.
I'm fired.
Get out of the booth, Jack.
No, I like it in here.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer, Sid Tepps. And in a closing tribute to Hal Douglas, since he was a voiceover man, we're going to hear my main man from Cleveland, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, doing I Hear Voices.
I long so much to be where I was before I was me. My